Okay, so I thought long and hard about what I wanted to read for this segment. There was a section that I thought I'd read in chapter 2, but when I went to go read it, I discovered it was kind of slow paced and kind of not really what I wanted to share with everyone about this book. I felt like Ella wasn't at her best, our protagonist. I felt like Ella wasn't really at her best in that. So slight spoilers ahead, but this is from chapter 9. This is Ella has just been kidnapped by the previously mentioned antagonist, Ari, who is kind of a mysterious young man who is clearly messing with magical matters that he shouldn't be. And he is asking Ella to help him gather more of the Gemini artifacts, which are not really a safe kind of magic to mess with. They kind of mess with your head, even though they give you more power. So this is what I wanted to share. Ready for this? A male voice. Something about it sounded familiar, but the only person Ella could think of who could hold that much contempt in their tone was Denji, and it certainly wasn't him. A series of squawks. Well, we probably have enough fragments to run some tests, the male voice retorted, and the squawks. The male voice retorted to the squawks. I'm starting to sound like my aunt. All right, keep an eye on the stowaway then. I'll deal with the girl. More squawks. I'm not making bird noises. Then I guess we can begin as soon as she wakes up, the male voice said confidently. Ella cautiously opened her eyes, but it didn't take much time, I'm barely being conscious, to realize that she was sitting in a rather uncomfortable wooden chair with her hands tied behind her back. Eyes jolting open at this realization, it occurred to her that she was in a rather open street outdoors. The ground was covered in red bricks and the surrounding buildings were stylized similarly, providing contrast with the modern skyscrapers in the distance. Curiously, however, despite the surrounding businesses and massive footpaths that made up the street, there were only 2 people to be seen. The first was a young man with copper-colored skin and stark white hair who bore a striking resemblance to Zack. His height and slightly more defined features gave the impression he was slightly older than Zack, and he held an expression of vigor in his mismatched purple and yellow eyes that Ella had never seen Zack muster. He wore a long, dark coat and dark gloves, with a pair of combat boots and cargo pants on his lower half. His entire look seemed a little like the sort of thing brooding anime protagonists that the boys Ella's age seemed to like, although she just found such characters obnoxious. Not far away was the familiar shape of Krim, looking disheveled and tied up and unconscious, a few feet away from Ella. A bird Ella identified as a magpie was perched on Krim's knee, looking over at her suspiciously. "Where am I?" Ella exclaimed, struggling against her bonds and catching the young man and bird's attention. "Who are you? Let me go!" The Zack lookalike glanced her way and smirked at her. "He isn't waking up anytime soon, and you're not going to make much progress with that veil around your wrist," he said, crossing his arms in satisfaction. Ella hesitated. She had seen veils before, objects treated in such a way that they repelled spellcasting. "Let me go!" she exclaimed again, continuing to struggle until the chair lost balance and fell over. The young man reacted as soon as he saw Ella fall and, with a blast from his hand to where she was falling, opened an indigo portal beneath her and above her, closing the bottom one as she fell through and landed softly on the ground. "Let's not cause trouble here, all right?" he said, walking up to Ella and squatting in front of her. Ella stared at him, clearly quite alarmed by these events. To answer your first question, this is the Distillery District of Toronto, or at least a pocket dimension replica of it. As for who we are, my name is Ari and this is Magpie. You probably can't understand them, but I assure you they're able to understand you. He gestured to the bird, who nodded in response. You look like Zach, Ella said, stunned. The young man's smirk only grew. So you can see what I look like, can't you? That day at the university wasn't a fluke? He asked in a bemused tone. I've been using a perception alteration spell to prevent anyone from making any connection between me and Zachary Wednesday, the young man explained. Not like many people would anyways, the way he keeps himself locked up. But I digress. I'm not here to discuss me. He turned to Ella. I'm here to discuss your magic. My magic? Ella asked, frightened and not at all satisfied. You aren't more of Soul Wednesday's people, are you? The bird let out a small laugh-like caw as Ari winced in response. I'd rather not be compared to the villain of this story, so no, we certainly aren't, he said sternly. I'm what people a long time ago might have called a messenger. Messengers? Ella muttered. She remembered hearing something about that during Denji and Soul's argument. The white-haired young man nodded. It's a bit complicated, but to put it simply, the world is en route for destruction, and to stop it, we need to gather the Gemini artifacts, and you may be one of 2 humans on Earth who weren't affected by their presence. Ella grimaced, looking at Ari's eyes suspiciously. Having noticed before they were the same off-shining color as she had seen before when affected by the artifact, although she saw no artifact on his person. Then you might want to put away whatever artifact you're using. Then maybe we can talk about saving the world or whatever. Ari simply looked at her with a self-satisfied expression. It's a bit more complicated than a simple artifact. Ella looked at him in disbelief. You want me to believe your eyes are normally glowing like that? She asked, annoyed. Ari looked annoyed. Trust me, I don't need an artifact to channel Gemini's power. Ella shook her head. Geez, evil overlord rule number 22. No matter how tempted you are by the prospect of unlimited power, don't consume an energy field larger than your head. Ari shot her an irritated look. What? She asked. You're clearly talking like someone who has consumed an energy field larger than your head.
Thank you. That was good. So what was your favorite part of writing the book?
Character design. I have a bit of a background in which drawing has always been kind of difficult for me. I have hand tremors and kind of underdeveloped fine motor skills. So I actually, as I was developing this idea, learned to draw alongside developing the characters. So as I got better at designing them, I also got better at drawing them.
Nice. So that was kind of your favorite part, was designing the characters and...
Yeah, developing them and their world and everything about them that I could think about visually.
Great. Well, chat, if you have any questions for Erynn, please feel free to chime in. Now, just the other day, there was a lovely write-up of Welcome to the Other London in the London Free Press and also the Toronto Star. Would you like to tell us about that?
My family are pushy and put out a press release. They put out a press release, all right. And the Free Press, very last minute, was just like, well, crap, I guess we want to actually interview this person. So here I am sitting in my pajamas in my apartment on the couch in the corner of the sectional. At about like 9 a.m., I get a call from my mom that says, hey, somebody responded to the press release. I'm going to give you their information so that you can go be interviewed by them. And I'm just like, I've had like 1 cup of coffee. What are you doing? So obviously I chugged another cup of coffee and called the guy, and he gave me an interview, and then was just like, do you want to go get your picture taken in front of Mandela Books? Because my mom had told him that Mandela Books was the base. It's a real store. It's a real store, and it's a new age occult store. So it's a magic shop in real life too, and it's the basis for Denji's shop and the Middlesex County Fixing Bureau. So that is sort of why I ended up going to get my picture taken outside the real shop that the shop in the book is based on, and going forth to get like nice clothes on, get ready, all that good stuff, and getting interviewed that day. And then I just crashed at home.
Sounds like a bit of a whirlwind there.
It was an adventure.
So, chat, do you guys have any questions for Erynn, for either of us? So, one other thing that we haven't mentioned yet in this launch party, for those who haven't seen the books yet, we have illustrations. So there are a handful of illustrations in the book.
Yeah, no. Catherine did like a wonderful job on the illustrations. Like, they're like actually amazing.
Well, thank you. All right, so let's see. I have a question from Anonymous Typewriter. This is a book for middle schoolers. So what are the major lessons you would hope a kid would take away from reading your book?
Well, at least one of the examples I can give is that there's a couple times in the book in which protagonists Ella and Zach get into slight arguments over Ella getting upset, thinking Zach is saying something mean about LGBTQ plus people. Then it turns out that he's just kind of blunt and doesn't know what he's saying. And there's like a couple of instances in which little misunderstandings like that happen. And I've seen like a lot of cases in which people get really defensive, and you know what, rightly so. But something that I wanted to show was these characters just talking it out and realizing what the problem is and moving past it. And that is definitely a major lesson for kids that I'm hoping they'll take away, that someone's not automatically a bad person if they say something that you don't quite see as correct, that you should find out if that's actually what they mean, or if they're just misinformed or other stuff before you go forth with that one.
Yeah, I remember commenting on that in the editing phase of the book, and I liked your reasoning for why it stayed that way. And I also have to say that one of the other things that I loved about the book was the fact that Ella's dad's is just taken so casually and normally by so many characters in the book. You know, it's just, yep, she has two dads. That's it. And I do love that representation that you have in the book. All right, so let's see. Aces Delta says, tell us about how this all started. Did you just wake up one morning and decide, you know what, I'm going to write a book?
No, I woke up one morning and decided, you know what? Denji never got a happy ending. Let's go give Denji a happy ending in a story, because every story about him has just been about his suffering. Let's go give him like a happy ending. And then from there, I went, I'm going to make a Paper Mario style RPG. And that fell through almost immediately. And then I went, I'm going to make a comic. And that fell through almost immediately. And maybe like several months of developing these characters, an idea later, I just went, okay, I'm just going to go write a book. Let's go write a book. And I wrote a book. And it's a book with illustrations. So close enough, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. It had a very light novel style feel to the way the story played out, so I thought it was important to get a few of those types of illustrations into it. Alright, YEG Quiglies. Do these characters remain in your broader story arc, new novels, etc.?
Honestly, I wouldn't be a 20-something artistic person in today's day and age if I didn't have essentially a whole cinematic universe of these characters worked out in my head. So rest assured, you will see more of this stuff.
And to add to that, see if I have it in reach. A couple of months ago, I released an anthology of stories from Brainlag authors, and it in fact included a short story from the Other London universe. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. Okay. So that was originally a chapter in the book, but it that was originally a chapter in the book, but it didn't flow correctly in any part of the story, and conveniently, Catherine was doing a short story or anthology at the time and was just like, do you want to just like put an intro on this so that it explains this universe and put this in the short story anthology? And I was just like, okay.
Sorry, someone was asking about the hoodie. It's got the ears too.
Yep.
Yeah, so...
It's a wonderful hoodie.
It's very nice. And it's perfect for this time of year.
I'm just wearing the dingy sweater. I'm wearing the dingy sweater.
So tell us about the short story.
So the premise of the short story, it takes place immediately after book one chronologically, but we don't see a lot of reference to book one in it. It's about Zach, Denji, and Nebula, three characters who are not particularly in touch with Earth culture, trying to figure out what to get Ella for her birthday. And that's kind of where that goes. They all get into various shenanigans trying to figure out what it is and what's going on and how birthdays work. And also Zach avoids the crap out of going outside as usual and tries to order things and sends Denji out to get things for him. And it ends with Denji trying to play a trading card game. So you know what? That's pretty good.
It was. It was very entertaining. So, thank you for that. Let's go. My goodness. All right. Elbitacola or Ibitacola, do you have any advice for folks that have been thinking about wanting to write a book?
You ever seen that one like Shia LaBeouf video? Like, just do it. Don't let your dreams be dreams. That's literally the only advice I can give you. Just do it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And for people who are interested in trying to write a book, I would also recommend NaNoWriMo. That's short for National Novel Writing Month. And it's an online challenge to write a 50,000-word novel in the month of November. So it's coming up very soon. And there's no prizes or anything for it. It's just, for the sake of doing it. And the whole point is quantity, not quality. Because you can always edit it later. So I definitely recommend that if you're interested in giving writing a try. So Robertson's42 asks, how many books in the series are you expecting to write?
I don't have an exact number because I have it planned in story arcs as opposed to books. And story arcs are multiple books. I know that the current arc we're in is only going to be 2 books long, but the next one is probably going to be 3 or 4. And I have those like completely planned, and then the one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that conceptualized but not really planned. And I know where it's going to end, just not how exactly we're going to get there.
Okay. So Are there any particular challenges with writing, since I know you have some difficulties with staying focused on reading books? Does that also apply to writing?
Not always if I can get some good music going. Music is largely what helps keep me focused, and it doesn't always work for writing because finding music that matches the tone of what somebody else is trying to convey is really hard. But it works for writing because matching the tone of what you're trying to convey is a lot easier.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right, Joel C. Adams asks, for those of us who live in the other London, are there some familiar places we will recognize?
Well, I mentioned Mandela Books, which is just off Richmond Row. It's very close to Victoria Park. And I also, Richmond Row is where a lot of the story takes place, and Ella goes to H.S. Bear Secondary School, which is an off-brand of H.B. Beale Secondary School, which is a major arts high school in the city. And what other ones did we hit? Well, from what I read there, Toronto and the Distillery District show up, and we meet some characters from Elgin County. They're from Port Stanley. And there's a lot of time spent talking about Dundas and Richmond, which is an intersection that is in the center of downtown London. And probably not going to show up for a couple books yet, but there was a cut chapter that took place at Storybook Gardens.
And don't forget the university.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The university is mentioned too. Western University is brought up a few times.
All right. Yeah, actually, when I was doing the illustration that I showed on stream earlier, I was... I actually looked on Google Maps for London, and I was looking for bridges around the university to try to figure out where exactly it was taking place, that chapter, that scene. And
yeah. So my mother has worked at the university for as long as I've lived in London, and as such, I've spent a significant time exploring Western for having only gone there for like a year. Less than, actually. And I was thinking a lot about in the scene that takes place there, I was thinking a lot about how there's a lot of underground tunnels that connect the different buildings together on Western Campus, and how there's some weird layouts to buildings in general because they've had additions and stuff. And more of that is going to be touched on, and all of RE hiding in that area is going to be touched on next book. But I was thinking quite a bit about all that. Also about the fact that there's geese there, like in the spring. You do not want to be on Western Campus in the spring. There are geese there and they will maul you.
Yes, Zephyr Valgale says the same thing. All right, so I really have to scroll back to find the questions. The chat's just great here. All right, Aces Delta asks, if you were in the other London universe, where do you see yourself?
Well, I hope I'd live downtown. My apartment actually flooded in the middle of working on the book.
Oh, no.
I used to live downtown, and my apartment flooded, and I've always been like, I still have that apartment in that universe. This is all I got. I still have that apartment, or a better one.
Our Nani Mate asks, are sleight of hand tricks still considered magic tricks in the other London universe?
In the same way that a fox is considered a canine.
Okay. Let's see. How willing and open are you to the possibility of film/TV series adaptations?
I am very open to that. I would love to see this series. Also, I have a friend who I believe is in this chat at the moment who okay. I have a friend who I believe in this chat in the moment who said that he'd eat a deep fried paper plate if I ever got a movie, film adaptation of any visual medium, video game, film adaptation, anything. He said he'd eat a deep fried paper plate if I got that. So I want to see that happen, and I want to see my stuff in a visual medium. So
I'm gonna have to work on that. Got it. All right, Aces Delta also asks, there's a lot of really relatable characters in Other London. Is there any one character that you personally relate most to?
No. They're all meant to be relatable in different ways. I mean, write what you know, so like all of them are relatable to me in some way. I will say, however, that Soul is the embodiment of my uptight British relatives. I just want to say that. Soul is my uptight British relatives, except more fun, but probably also more dangerous too.
I asked a silly question, I got a silly answer, I'm happy with it. Good. All right, let's see. The Man Who 66 asks, I know that you wrote much of this book in a cafe during COVID. Where have you been writing?
I bought a desk. That's about it. I bought a desk. I've after like months of like using TV trays and trying to figure out how to work at my couch, I bought a desk. I bought an IKEA desk.
Nice.
It's great. I love it. My cats like to sleep on it because the sun shines on it.
Oh, perfect. The Mage Longstaff says, I loved seeing London brought back to me. I'm in BC now through the locations, HS Bear School, Victoria Park, and I wondered if London musician and community organizer Jake Levesque was inspiration.
Yeah, funny story there, yeah. Jake Levesque is probably, I know him, he's probably the closest to Denji's physical appearance we're gonna get. Like if he was East Asian, he'd just be Denji. He's this incredibly tall, kind of old-looking guy who always has this youthful look on his face, but is like he's got the wispy gray hair. He's like super tall. He is the image of Denji. He's just not East Asian. So Denji is, as his name suggests, supposed to be Japanese. Not like actually Japanese, fantasy Japanese.
Well, that answers the next question, which was who inspired Denji. So
that's not the only person. There's a few of them. His little glasses are based on a principal from from like the third elementary school I went to, and his dry sense of humor is based on the resource teacher in a certain in one of the resource lunchrooms. The book actually has a list of people who inspired Denji.
Yes, actually, in your acknowledgements here.
Acknowledgements have a list of people who inspired him. And here, one of them is in the chat right now, actually. Hi, Shade, I'm calling you out. I'm calling you out, Shade.
In fact, the beginning of the acknowledgements is the real Denjis of the world.
Yeah. But I want to say that Denji's appearance and sense of humor is largely inspired by those people, and his kind of stuck-up nature, in a way, is inspired by my dad. But a lot of his like actual experiences, and when you get deeper into him, are more inspired by my own mental health experiences.
Okay. So this was in the chat when we were talking about the geese in London. Anonymous Typewriter asked, what is your best geese mauling story?
So I briefly went to Western, and I had a sort of homeroom type area on the Huron campus, which is a little off the side a bit, but there's a big field between the Huron campus and Western. So anytime I wanted to go to main campus, which is where all the food was, I had to walk across this like field of geese. And as soon as they had children, like as soon as those geese had children, they would, as soon as they saw someone, just come at you. They would just go after you. You know, they would like that. You didn't even have to be near their children. You just had to be in the field, and you'd have like 3 or 4 geese chasing you.
I remember a number of years ago when I was working at an office in Oakville. There were a couple of geese nesting in the parking lot. And they were generally, you know, kept to themselves. But they were on the far side of the parking lot, and the father goose would wander through the parking spaces and peck at his reflection in the cars. But only the European cars. I don't know what it was, but he had a grudge against the VWs, the Mercedes, or... Okay, from the chat, the mage Longstaff, who invented the static text that Denji speaks? It looks really great, and I find myself gazing at it in order to glean meaning from it. I love the idea of people speaking in your router connecting to the internet language.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Denji, Mr. Wizard Guy, speaks an old, incomprehensible language as his first language, and to most people it just sounds like dial-up noises. I admittedly came up with it because when I first came up with the idea for this story, it was not middle grade. It was either YA or a little bit older, or I wasn't really trying for an age demographic. So Denji swore a lot, and he would like censor himself around the kids with beeping noises. And that was a funny gag, but I wanted to do something more with that. So I eventually ended up making it that he actually does exclaim in a language that is incomprehensible. And no, before anyone asks, there's no swear words underneath those static language. It's fine. There's nothing actually obscene there, but it is totally safe for children. That was kind of thing. But we have this joke in my friend group of saying, "Let Denji say" some obscene word. And it's a pretty fun gag that we do that.
Naughty Mate asks, will Zach's chapter titles continue for the rest of the series? I love the file directory influence.
Yeah, it's supposed to look like he's using the command prompt, actually. Yes, the characters' custom titles for chapters. All of the characters have a different style of chapter title. Ella's are like magical girl anime titles. They sound like Precure titles. And Zach's are the command prompt. And Denji's are just him like rambling at the audience mostly. And we only got one chapter title with Ari and Magpie, but theirs is like supposed to be kind of ominous. Anyways, yeah, no, there's a couple of chapter title styles, and they will continue, and there will be more as more characters are introduced.
So, you were talking earlier about the different ideas that you have for future story arcs that are in development. So is Ella always going to be the star, or in some of these future books, is it going to be different characters as the main character?
So Ella's always going to be a central important character, but later books are going to focus more on other characters and other characters' perspectives. A lot of this particular book is supposed to be followed from her perspective, but we do get some perspective jumps to other characters. I really want for later books to keep that formula of being from two characters' perspectives for the whole book, and having one primary character perspective and one that we occasionally jump to. So that's kind of how that went. And there will be more books focused on more characters. And I want to say that the primary perspective character for the next book is Zach. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, that will be fun. Can we start a Denji Needs a Tea fund?
He does. He always needs caffeine. I will donate to get. Funny thing, I have a Ko-fi page, and it's literally listed as being Denji's tea fund.
So yes, there you go, Aces Delta. A Ko-fi technically would be just that.